Hi there, I'm Colin, and I'm the Creative Arts and Communications Coordinator at Redemption Church. We are a radically inclusive community of hope seeking to live Jesus-centered lives, and we currently are in the season of Lent. During Lent, we are invited to consider the fragility of life, the finitude of our existence, the things we have done and left undone, and the reality that through it all, we are beloved by our Creator. The following sermon is part of a Lenten series spent journeying with Jesus to the cross, where we consider how Jesus shows us what it means to live fully human lives amid chaos and death. Now, wherever you find yourself today, we're glad you're here, and we hope this sermon is an encouragement to you. We rely on the generosity of our community, and this includes you, to share these sermons and pursue financial health as a community. To participate in giving, visit redemptionhru.com/give. Now, here's this week's sermon.
Well, good morning. Happy spring break to all who celebrate. You got kind of a weird passage this morning in our gospel reading. So we're in the season of Lent, and one of the things that we're doing that's a little unique for us as a church is during Lent, we are going through what's called the lectionary. Lectionary is a compilation of readings that churches all across the globe will share. And so this morning, this is the text, this is the gospel text for millions of Christians, Catholic Christians, Anglican Christians, Methodist Christians, crazy non-denominational Christians like us. We're real wild. And so when I opened the text up this week, I was like, what in the world is this? And how in the world do we preach this? And what does this have to say about anything? And then I looked at it for 2 seconds and then realized, a lot actually. So in the season of Lent, one of the things that we're doing, and the reason this series is called Imitatio Christi, is we are imagining what it might look like to really follow Jesus, what it might mean to imitate Christ. And the Latin spin on it is just a fancy way to put our pinkies out. But right now, I suspect for a lot of you in the room, and if not right now, then at least recently or soon, you are afraid of something. There's real fear in your life about this thing that could happen or is happening or might happen is really threatening my life as I know it. And under normal circumstances, when life is good and everything's kind of rocking, there's plenty out there that threatens us. There's plenty out there that could take away our happiness, take away our life. And in times of growing global unease, it seems as if now, perhaps more than ever in our lifetime, the world is a very, very dangerous place. I think I've said this recently, but it's the phrase that keeps coming back to my mind. It feels like we're just one crazy person pushing a red button away from the whole thing blowing up. In Terrence Malick's 2019 film, A Hidden Life, it tells the story of an Austrian named Franz Jägerstatter, which is just fun to say. But he's an Austrian Christian who's seeking to figure out, how do I live a faithful life as a farmer that is Jesus-centered as the Third Reich rises in power in Germany and World War II breaks out? This is the film that we're opening our Lenten Film Club series with. I would encourage you to watch it. It's worth experiencing, meditating on. It's different, right? It's not Transformers 6, okay? So set your expectations there. No, Captain America does not show up. I'm so sorry. But the film opens with this very telling line as Franz is reflecting, and he says, I thought that we could build our nest high up in the trees, that we could fly away like birds to the mountains. It's setting the scene for what I think we all hope and long for, which is a world at peace, a life of peace, a life where we're just left alone to live our lives and enjoy our lives and do our thing. But the reality is that even in normal circumstances, this cannot ever be the case for any of us. There is no such thing as building our nest high up in the trees away from all the dangers of this world. And we can do just enough because we have just enough money and just enough freedom and just enough America, gosh darn it, to make it seem like we've succeeded in this great escape. That we have somehow achieved the pursuit of happiness and we have dealt with the real world and all of its dangers. And so we insulate ourselves with just enough money. That our 401ks are just high enough, our savings is just big enough, our investments are just right enough, or at least they were. Ba-dum-bumps. I'm here all day, folks. That we can somehow insulate ourselves from the dangers of the world. Or maybe we think we can just distract ourselves from the dangers of the world. With just another trip or another cruise or another experience in life, or maybe I just need a change of scenery. I know, I'll move to California, become an actor. We can distract ourselves with enough of just doing the new and next and exciting thing. Or maybe we think we could just soothe ourselves with enough distraction, enough indulgence, enough numbness, just one more drink, just one more scroll, just one more thing that will somehow keep us from seeing the truth of the world. And for many of us, we take a good thing, and that is friends and family and a social life, and we use that to escape. We escape from ourselves and our fears and our anxiety through people. And so much of the American life is what the Christian ethicist Stanley Hauerwas is trying to figure out how to get out of life alive. He says this in a sermon on this very text that we read this morning. As Americans, we seem determined to create a safe world when the rest of the world is very much consumed by danger. Our attempt to be safe in a dangerous world requires that others must live in a world made more dangerous by our determination to give ourselves the illusion that we are or can ever be fully safe. To put it starkly, we simply do not know how to live as people destined to die. We thus entertain the illusion that when all is said and done, if we just get good enough at medical interventions or bolstering our nation's defense, we may be able to get out of life alive. I think he kind of hits the nail on the head here, and he does not mince words. He never does. But what happens to us when we're confronted with the truth that we cannot escape loss? That when so much of life, right, you spend the first half of your life trying to find a life, and then you get a life and you gain a life, and now we're going to build a life, and then you realize around your 40s, I don't know, around 43 maybe, you realize wait, the rest of my life is losing, it's loss, it's figuring out how to die well. It's not about me anymore, it's about my kids, or it's not about me anymore, it's about the church, or it's not about me anymore, it's about this thing that will be here long after I'm gone. We can't escape the dangers of the world, and so what happens when we lose? What happens when we lose loved ones? Either by a move, or by a death, or by their simply choosing that we aren't worth loving anymore. What happens when the doctor tells us that it's chronic, that it's terminal, that there is no treatment, there is no going back to what life was like before? Your vulnerability is exposed, and you will now need support for the rest of your life. What happens when we lose who it is we think we are and are confronted with the messy person that so many people actually see in us? When we're forced to confront the person we actually are versus the person that we pretend to be. What happens when we experience loss, when we confront the reality that is death? Y'all see why I wear all black now, right? This makes sense. But I think what Jesus does for us in this text is he offers us a glimpse at who he's inviting us to be as his people, as the church. But he's also offering us a glimpse into the psyche of God's very self in the face of so many things worth fearing. And so in Luke 13, we get this strange story where the Pharisees, who for most of Luke are really trying to do Jesus in a few short chapters, they'll be trying to kill him. But they come to Jesus to warn him like, hey, dude, look out. Herod is after you. So in verse 31, at that time, some Pharisees came up and said to Jesus, get away from here because Herod wants to kill you. Save yourself, Jesus. We'll hear this refrain repeated later on in Jesus' life and story. In a similar way, it's very much what Jesus was being offered by Satan last week in our gospel message. Hey, Jesus, you can get out of this, right? Just make some bread. You can have all of this. Just bow down and worship me. Save yourself, Jesus. And Jesus says to them, go and tell that fox, look, I'm casting out demons and performing healings today, and tomorrow and on the third day I will complete my work. So, okay, I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to because it's just too much fun. So when you hear fox, you think of one of two things. You either think of like clever, crafty sort of thing. You're like, man, Jesus is like, you go tell that clever, crafty person of power, Herod is the king of Galilee. The other thing you might hear is like sexy, which is weird. I don't know, like you go tell that sleek vixen, Herod. No, was that just me this week? Okay. But the word here is actually used in a lot of Hebrew text as like a demeaning put down. And I would love to stand in front of you and say the actual words that are coming to mind, but it's church and I'm a pastor, and so we're not going to do that. But it would be equivalent to Jesus going, you go tell that poser. You go tell that punk. You go tell that nobody, that daddy's boy. Right? He is not complimenting Herod, and he's also not just like giving him some sort of like nod to power. He is intentionally thumbing his nose and dismissing the king of Galilee. Oh, if Herod wants to kill me, here's where he can find me. I'll be here busy doing the Lord's work today and tomorrow and on the third day, and then it'll be done because I will do it. And we get a picture of what God thinks of these so-called tyrants and despots who have so much control and so much power in the world. He almost aggravatingly dismisses him. You want him to be like, no, you have more to say to Herod. He's done terrible things to the people of Israel. Like, you want to do more here, right, Jesus? He's like, no, I got this taken care of. I'm casting out demons. I'm performing healings today and tomorrow. And then on the third day, I will complete my work. And if you're paying attention and you know the story, this is a recapitulation of Jesus's full life and work. That what I am doing is I am dying. And that my death is my choice. And that in my death, all the demons will be cast out and all the things will be healed. And on the third day, I will rise from the dead and it will be completed. Verse 33, nevertheless, I must go on my way today and tomorrow and the next. I have to do it. I have to go, right? Save yourself, Jesus. No. This is where I'm going because it's impossible that a prophet should be killed outside of Jerusalem. And this is Jesus now mocking Jerusalem. He's in Galilee right now. So this is an area north of Jerusalem. And he's like, look, I'm safe because I'm not in Jerusalem. I'm not in the place where they kill the prophets. So it's cool, right? See, Jesus sees the world entirely differently. With such confidence and clarity, it offers him the seeming ability to like float above the very real, actual circumstances which ought to have induced fear in him. Like Herod really is actually trying to kill him and really does have the power and authority to do so. And Jesus is so unbothered by this, it's kind of aggravating. Jesus is in Galilee, and the next few verses turn towards Jesus willingly marching towards Jerusalem, where he says here, prophets are put to death. So he knows where he's going, he knows what he's doing, but in the face of this immediate threat, he is unbothered. It's as if there is a reality in which Jesus lives that is not threatened by the reality in which Herod operates. And I think as the church, one of the things that God is inviting us into is living into that reality, God's kingdom, in which Jesus actually is Lord of all things. And not in the reality that's on your newsfeed. The reality that says, no, this person over here is really in charge of things, and this person over here is really a threat to your well-being and your life and your career and your 401k, even though they might actually practically be. Because in this reality, Jesus does two things. The first is he puts these so-called authorities in their proper place. And the second thing he does is he resolves to live into his vocation, his mission, the reason that he has entered into the world. You see, Jesus understands that death is in his future and it is a certainty. When he came down to be a human being, he understood that part of what it means to be a human being in a fallen world is death. That he entered into humanity with the purpose of experiencing death. And so tell the Pharisees essentially to go tell Herod, you know where I'll be. You want to kill me? Come get me. It's also the assertion that Jesus' life and vocation and mission and status is not altered by threats, by tyrants, by things that are seemingly going against him, by circumstances that seem like God is after him. He sees through all of that noise and he sees the truth of the matter, who he is in God, his Father, and what God has called and invited him to do as the Savior of the world. And I do wonder if we are too easily threatened by tyrants, if we are too easily swayed by political winds in a way that suggests maybe God's rule and God's reign in this world and Jesus' lordship as the King of all kings is under some sort of duress. I ask myself that question a lot because I don't understand why things go the way they go. I don't understand why things happen to me and to my family. I don't understand why things have happened in this country the way that they have. And yet Jesus is kindly and gently inviting me back. Am I God? Am I king? Or am I not? And Jesus understands his vocation because he understands who he belongs to and who he does not belong to. And I think this is the important distinction. Jesus is God's. He is God's beloved Son. He is not Herod's. He is not Pilate's. He is not the Romans or the religious leaders of his day. He is not the powers and the principalities and the authorities that so-called have power. These powers and authorities can do their worst, but can they overthrow God? This is the question. And I know that there are many times where we go, yeah, I think they might be able to. I know that there's many times where circumstances seem like they have. I know there's many times where your prayers feel like they're hitting the ceiling and coming back down, going out into some dark void and never being returned to you. But what I want to offer to you this morning is that in a dangerous world, we can take refuge in a loving God. And that the story of Jesus is actually inviting us into something beyond letting the circumstances dictate our love and our fear and our life. See, the temptation here is to read this story and be like, man, we need to be more like Jesus. We need to just WWJD, just pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, have a few more Bible studies, and then just go out there and do what Jesus does. And that would be great. And by all means, please, go for it. And in a week, when you failed, and you found yourself laying in bed in the middle of the night, anxious over your 401k being cut in half, anxious over how are we going to get rid of this house, anxious over what sort of state is education going to be in when my children go to college, when you find yourself laying in bed, anxious over the state of your job and your career and your future and maybe even your very existence as a human being, know that that's okay. And that's very human. Because what if in the face of all that you fear losing, instead of trying to just mimic Jesus, a worthwhile thing to do, instead you looked at Jesus and you see what Jesus is doing for and with you. See, look at Jesus' faith and confidence in the face of death, certain death, intentional death. Jesus alludes to his death and his resurrection, his work of bringing peace to the world. His work of bringing peace to the world, of peace to you. Now, peace is a nice word. We use it in turn on your meditation app and you can just take some deep breaths, 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out, pause, do it again. It's great. Now have some peace. And there's something there. But the peace that Jesus brings is like robust peace. It's the peace of the Hebrew people. It's an earthy peace. It is like the orchards are blooming peace, and the heifers just keep popping calves out peace. It's an abundance peace. It's not just the lack of something, it is the fullness of everything. It is something that you cannot bring yourself, but that Jesus is bringing to you. And the way that Jesus brings peace is by entering into the world and all of its dangers in full. And so Jesus is set on entering into all of what it means to be human, all of what we are afraid of. He'll enter into the loss of loved ones who are betrayed and abandoned. As he is betrayed and abandoned by his closest friends. He knows what it is to lose someone. He will enter into the loss of safety as he gives himself over freely to a corrupt and bloodthirsty empire and religious complex. He will enter into the loss of his status, being stripped, shamed, humiliated, and killed in a way that signals his despicableness in the eyes of the world, his worthlessness in the eyes of the very people he came to save. But he doesn't stop there. He actually even keeps going, and he enters into the loss of blessedness. He enters into cursedness, forsakenness by God itself. My God, why have you forsaken me? Anyone who hangs on a tree is to be cursed, the law says. Hebrew quotes. And he enters into the fullness of everything that we fear, everything that we're afraid of losing. He enters into the fullness of death. And why? I don't know, God told him to. Or you know the answer to this one. It's love. The kids in the back know the answer to this one. It's Jesus' love for his God, his unwavering faithfulness and unwillingness to do anything other than what God wants him to do. And also, it is his love for you. Not just the world, not just the cosmos, not just the people out there, for you. The wreck that you are. And I only say that because I know me, and I'm just making some assumptions here, okay? This love, with outstretched arms, enters into our death. This is the love that casts out all fear. This is God's perfect love stretched out for you and to you. So we can do more than just mimic Jesus here. We can receive Jesus' gift, Jesus' embrace, Jesus' love. And when we look at Jesus, we say that even though the earth itself seems to be shaken and his very life is under threat, our Lord and our King is not. When would-be despots flex their muscle, Jesus seems to yawn, aggravatingly unbothered. And Jesus turns to the powers and the political religious institutions and the social power that was at the center of his world, Jerusalem, and he mocks it. This thing, Jerusalem, that was meant to be the heart and soul of God's people, God's presence in the earth, the source of blessing for all of the world. He laments the reality that all these powers in this place ever do is kill the voice of God. Silence God. Rebuff God. Don't listen to God. And so he speaks what is essentially a curse over all these powers, all these institutions, all these so-called things that are worth fearing. And he says, I'll leave your house to you. You think you've got it figured out? I'll leave it to you. And in a few short years, the Romans come in and they tear down the temple and they raze Jerusalem. And all those big heavy hitters that are threatening Jesus' life, all their power has been stripped from them and they're left with nothing. And here, and Jesus is being stripped, and Jesus is being crucified, the heart of God is revealed. A God who, like a mother hen, aches, longs to gather those people who aren't even willing to gather us in our fears, in our failures, under the wing of God, into God's motherly protection and affection, right? And I did FFA, y'all, okay? So I know about hens, right? It's fierce towards anyone who might threaten the chicks, but towards the chicks, it's gentle and kind towards us. And we compare this, and I think Jesus is doing this intentionally with a fox who gets into the hen house and wants to kill and destroy, versus the hen who protects. And so to be gathered does not mean that we are going to be free from danger. To be God's people doesn't mean you get like here, Jesus died for your sin, so everything's going to work out, it's going to be fine. Go live your best blessed life. We do, in fact, live in a dangerous world. But we live in a dangerous world under the wing of a loving God who has promised us that the danger and the death will not win, that it has, in fact, been overcome in Jesus Christ, and that God keeps his promises. And so we cling to that, and we hide ourselves in that. And so the church exists in the world to live with eyes wide open, not pretending that the world is something other than what it is, but seeing and bearing witness to the reality as if our eyes had been touched by the healer. And so we do not settle for just a little religion sprinkled on top of our materialistic, self-concerned lives. Instead, we seek to live as people who really and robustly believe that the person of Jesus Christ is actually my King. And in the 90s, I don't know how hard that was to do. But in 2025, it's shaping up to be a difficult task. But this is our vocation, church, to live and to bear witness in our life and in our worship that Jesus is Lord, to show the world what it means to hope and love and live in a world of death. And the answer that we give, the only answer we ever have and we ever give, is simply Jesus. Not an idea, not an abstraction, but a person who has come to us, has touched us, and healed us. And so we stand together to bear witness to the truth that yes, relationships die, and loved ones die, and economies die, and empires die. And that's all just a way of saying deep down at a base level, the thing we all fear most is actually really true, that one day we will very likely die, should the Lord tarry. And we'd rather not. Sam Wells pulls the curtain back and reminds us that this is not really the gospel we prefer. Right? There's a lot sexier versions of the gospel out there. He says, instead, we want a church to be about making friends, feeling spiritual, and offering helpful acts of service to the neighborhood. All good things. But we don't really want it to be about preparing one another for death. When Jesus says, hey, come and follow me, he makes it really clear where we're going. He says, pick up your instrument of death and come and follow me. And on the table is the offer that Jesus makes to us to find the fullness of life in this backwards way of living. Find the fullness in a life by abandoning all the things that we're so convinced are going to give us life, and instead seek to try and follow him as best we can. And so what I would say to you today, Redemption Church, is do not fear. I know that that's nice and trite and easy for me to say, right? This is not a 2020 like faith over fear, don't wear a mask, let's infect the world sort of vibe, okay? This is the real robust, take courage and take refuge in the God who is sheltering you under his wing, even in the face of great danger. And as we prayed together this morning, do not fear because the Lord is our light and our salvation. Do not fear because the Lord is the defense of your life, and he will surely give you shelter in the day of danger, and he will hide you under his wing. Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Yes, we will wait for the Lord. As we enter into the work of what Jesus has done for us, we enter into God's love for us. And there's nothing that can separate us from the love of God. Your past has been forgiven. Your present is secured in Christ, and your future is tied to his. There is nothing that can take that away. A government can't, an economy can't, a job can't, you can't. And so all you have to do is rest in that. And that's hard work enough. We're protected by a promise. And the name of that promise is Jesus, who has died our death so that we might inherit his life. And so even though we will one day die, that's not the end of our story. Death has lost its sting because out of death comes resurrection. And so now, as a community, we prepare ourselves to receive the one whose love transforms our fears and gives us what we need to step into our vocation in a dangerous world. To love like he loves, trusting fully in the will of God.
That concludes today's sermon. As always, if there's anything we can do to help serve you or help you connect with our church, we encourage you to say hey at redemptionhru.com/connect. We want to foster a community where everyone is seen, known, and loved. Now, as you go about your day, go in the love of the Father and by his Spirit, embody the hope of Jesus to the world around you.